studios. We have an officer basically around the neck area.
These two retired Vegas cops, now podcast hosts.
They don't have ID. They can't get into a hotel room.
To get them the help they need, especially if someone even gets arrested. A lot of people don't know how the justice system works.
But I want someone to actually know them and know that it's legit.
I see a big 2023 for this group right here.
I would, in general, be wary of the storefront psychic.
You guys have going on is necessary, it's needed.
Hey everybody, this is David Kohlmeyer, the Problem Solver. Thanks so much for joining us this week. Every Thursday these days, 5:45, 6 o'clock, we're going live. We're over here at the Sticky Paws studio. Every week we are bringing on experts and great people to speak about their expertise and how we can solve some problems, and they can share some wisdom. So today we have our lovely co-host. We have Laura Powers.
Hello, so great to be here as always.
Laura's amazing, been with us for a while as a co-host. And today was special. We have Paul here today, who is our new problem solver producer. Thanks so much, Paul, for being part of this.
Thanks for having me.
So let's move the microphone a little bit to you, a little bit more close there. Okay, great. So Paul basically, it's funny. You put it. Is it bad to have it in both ears?
Yeah, because then I can't hear what's going on in the room outside of it.
Why? You're gonna be okay. We locked the door. You're safe.
My bodyguard's right over there.
You're okay.
We got the bodyguard right
bodyguard.
at the door. We're good.
I was laughing. It's kind of like a Brooklyn style, like I like that. So anyway, Paul's from New York for myself. Actually, I was laughing the other day. I was saying that if Paul sounds like me, I sound really bad because I'm from New York and I've been here 21 years. And I know our accents sometimes seem to be, I guess, what's the word for it? Abrasive, yeah. And our mannerism. And so I just laugh and I'm like, does he sound like me? Or, I'm like, wow, I sound pretty bad. But I'm here 21 years, so I can't lose the accent. It is what it is, I used to say I'm from South Henderson, but that doesn't work anymore. But anyway, so today we actually have an awesome guest here today that I want to find out more information. We have Mac Miller today from Miller & Associates. Thanks so much for joining us.
Thanks, David, for having me.
So, Mac, the reason why that you're here today is that I've seen you in some different networking events and stuff like that. And I do know Candace with Real Vegas Magazine. I know she has an event going on tonight. And I saw you on the front page of Real Vegas Magazine. And I didn't really know your story. So I figured, hey, let's bring him on. I'm sure he's solving some problems. I know because of my relationship with Paul here, he said, hey, you're a great guy. And you've been involved in a lot of different things. So start out by telling us a little bit about where you're from and what you're doing.
Unlike a lot of people, I'm actually born right here in Las Vegas, Nevada.
Okay.
And spent my life here working in the community. As a kid, not a great neighborhood. I wasn't born in a wealthy family or anything like that. Grew up with hard knocks. Everything I learned when I give advice or when I talk to somebody about it, it's not just out of a book. And most of the time, it's from experience. And I always knew what I wanted, what I didn't want, what I liked, and what I didn't like. I knew what was good and what was bad, and I always strived to make sure that I'm all about kids. So I always tried to do things that kept kids out of trouble or helped them understand the law. Because in the neighborhood I grew up in, which was a block away from where the Martin Luther King statue is, it was just dirt. I saw a lot of things. I saw a lot of bad things. And I knew that wasn't for me. I knew there was better things. And you can blame it on TV, you can blame it on whatever you want, but I'm that type of guy that says, look, TV does influence you. Mm-hmm. Because when I saw cool things on TV, I was like, hey, you know what? I like that car. I got to do whatever it is to get that car. I've got to get educated. I've got to be smart. I've got to be a strategist. I've got to do whatever it takes to make shit happen. And which brings me to that, because that's what I do to this day. I learned through law school, through undergrad, that networking, meeting people, it's not necessarily, we've always heard the saying, it's not what you know, it's who you know. Well, a lot of people know Oprah Winfrey, but she doesn't know them. So they've got to know you too. You've got to make sure you stand out from the crowd, right? I mean, look at reality TV. You've got a lot of reality stars, but you really only have a few reality celebrities because they always make themselves stand out. So one of the things I do for people is I help them show how they can stand out from the crowd. You can't go to an event you can't throw a fistful of pennies in the air without hitting a lawyer, a real estate broker, or an insurance salesman. But how do you make yourself stand out? Everybody's selling the house. Everybody's representing you in law, right?
I agree.
That's what I do. I learned to do it very well, and I built I now can say an empire off of that. You know, here I am, a little kid from the west side of Las Vegas, and, you know, my family's gotten to the point where I can be driven around and, you know, in $400,000 cars, you know, and I don't just keep that for myself. There's plenty of people that I'll bring in under my wing, and I'll say, hey, let's help out. Let's do this. Let me show you how to get this done. Because the best way, Zig Ziglar always said, you'll get what you want if you give everybody what they need. And that's as simple as that. But that's what I do. And it's in every field.
Got it.
I don't have a specialty. My specialty is negotiation. My specialty is being a networker. My specialty is, I have a saying, I'm in politics as well. I ran for lieutenant governor of this state. And in politics, it's cutthroat. It's very cutthroat. If you think business is cutthroat, politics is even more so. Mm-hmm. And I would always say, whenever someone says, oh, I don't like that guy or that girl or whatever, and they've never met you, specifically with me, whenever I found out someone said they didn't like me, they can't stand me, I go out of my way to meet them. Because 9 times out of 10, they change their position. Now, if I hear somebody says they like me, I don't want to change their mind, so I don't go out of my way to meet them.
That's smart. That's a smart strategy.
It's just, it's a simple thing I do. And it's fun. I love what I do. And I'm never doing the same thing from day to day. From one minute, I'm helping someone sell a gold mine. The next minute, 38 marijuana dispensaries. The next day, I'm helping fly a kid in because he needs a surgery. So I don't like boring, and I can't go anywhere without meeting someone that I like, that I enjoy being around, and regardless of whether we have the same background, religion, race, or anything or not, I can find a common ground, and we can make it happen.
You know, I think it's great. I mean, I think the whole concept of networking is really important. I think a lot of people don't understand the power of networking. It does take time in general. Myself, actually, even Laura here, you know, Laura's new to town. How long have you been in town?
A little less than 2 years, but with travel, it's probably more like a year.
Okay.
Wow.
So she's been, you know, I've been going to a lot of events. She's been going, like, she's like one person that I would say that's really like networking, going to different places. And it is a small town in general. I don't know if we popped up anywhere at the same spot by accident. I mean, normally these days we kind of tell each other about different events, but the truth is that you just have to network and meet people. I met Paul actually at an event that was a cigar club originally. And I thought he had a great look. Both of you guys look really good looking, and you basically dressed well. And you know, I was a cop for 17 years, so anytime I can get into a t-shirt, you know, it's great. I was wearing a bulletproof vest for 17 years, and had to make sure I look sharp. These days, if I could just be casual, you know, that to me it's amazing, you know. But you guys look sharp in general. It'd be funny if I showed up in a suit and tie every day. What do you think, Chase? If I showed up at the Problem Solver, in a
I
suit
think you
and
should
tie?
do it. Get a problem solver tie.
Yeah, you should do it.
They would make fun of my other shirt I had was said just straight Problem Solver. I've upgraded to this one, which is my name, Problem Solver. But these guys make fun of me of the shirt, you know?
Branding.
Yeah, it's all about the branding.
Hey, I wear a vest under this sometimes.
And the truth is you never know these days. But with networking, I will share one thing that's funny. So with me, the reason why I started this show, so I'm not an attorney, I'm a retired police officer, but the goal was for me to become like a social influencer and to also to be a face that people would know that if when they have a problem or a legal issue that they can come to me. Now, I love helping people in general since I was a retired cop. I love talking to people at 2 a.m. I'm like, this is what you should do, don't do it. Now, even though at certain points in times they need an attorney, then I'll refer them. And then we have a network of different attorneys that help people in different ways, whether it's for free or discounted, whatever the situation may be. But I love helping people. So my thing is, yes, I'm not an attorney. We talked about this with Paul since he's helping us out. The problem solve, the goal is to help solve people's problems and refer them to the right direction, or refer them to a network, or, you know, whoever me. It could be a plumber, it could be a lawyer, it could be a doctor, you know, in general. But I will share with you, I did go to Walmart the other day, and I was looking at my phone. Someone says, oh, you're not going to say hello to me? And I was on the phone, and then next thing you know, they say, Mr. Problem Solver, you know, and I looked over, and it was someone I knew that I helped. So, you know, it takes time of networking and to also brand yourself, whether you're a strategist or you're helping people, if you're a psychic, or basically you're helping people, you know, with their problems and so on. It just takes time. The more you network, they say, increases your net worth. So I think that's important. So I think the key is network to meet people, meet good people as well, and then help people, not just to help people for you to get something back in return, but also to pay it forward. So, you know, I do commend you with that. In regards to you living on the West Side, so I've been here 21 years this week. Right. I came out here straight to be, I was a New York City cop, came out here, worked in Henderson as a cop. You lived in the West Side. You grew up there. Tell me a little bit about growing up, since I was not here.
Well, I'll tell you, it's very hard for people to understand this. When I say I grew up on the West Side, geographically, it isn't the West. It's actually North. And if you're from somewhere else and I say to you, oh, I grew up on the West Side. Well, when I grew up in, let's say, the late 80s and 90s, the true West Side didn't exist. As a matter of fact, and this is something a lot of people know. Everybody they go to a nightclub, they go to a bar, they go to a casino, and they get in trouble. They get 86 from the club, right? And they say, oh, I was 86. I had people would always come and tell me, oh, can you help me out get back into this casino because they 86 me? I says, well, you weren't 86. He says, yeah, I was 86. They came out, they told me I was 86. I'm 86. I said, you weren't 86. They said, well, what are you talking? You don't even know. I says, I know, because if you were 86, you wouldn't be standing here talking to me. Mm-hmm. And so the true West of Las Vegas was a desert. And so in Vegas, when they said to 86 that guy, they meant to send him out 8 miles and 6 feet deep. So he wasn't coming back. So that was code.
I didn't know that expression came from that. That's really good to know.
So that's the code for that. Okay?
I heard that before, but I also thought the 86 came from California.
Well, here's the thing. Where do you think they brought people when they disappeared from California?
Here.
The desert?
To the Nevada desert.
Okay. I never fully knew. I know people was 86, but it's, there's no...
It's 8 miles out. So here's the thing. I know Oscar Goodman, and I know Carolyn Goodman, and I know our mayor and our previous mayor, and some of the people like, Jan Laverty Jones, who was the mayor before Oscar. Mm-hmm. Okay. I know, they won't talk about this stuff, but I'm known as the guy that'll cause problems. I'm kind of known as the guy that's not going to shut up, and it's going to stir things up, but tell it like it is, or like a TAI is, as my uncle would say. And so when they were building Summerlin, when they were going out there, they were finding stuff. Just like over the last several months, they found a lot of bodies at Lake Mead.
Right.
When they were building Summerlin, they were finding stuff out there. So where I grew up on the West Side, which is technically the North, which is, Washington area, just north of the 15 and the Spaghetti Bowl. Mm-hmm. So I grew up over there. The history of this town was that was a barrier. That freeway, the 15 and 95, the Spaghetti Bowl, black people couldn't come. Well, at my time, I could. But my grandparents, they couldn't come past the Spaghetti Bowl unless they had a reason to, like they were working at a casino. Hence the sheriff's card. Okay? Everybody working in a casino today needs to have a sheriff's card. But what people didn't know was a sheriff's card was a card that black people used to have to show the sheriff to prove that they had a reason to be on the other side of town.
Wow.
Otherwise, they'd get picked up. They found out it was quite lucrative, and now they just make everybody get a sheriff's card, because if you don't, then you have to admit that there was some racism going on. So I lived on that side of town.
Was that the reason why they made that card, you think?
The card was made. It literally was a card that if you were black and you lived in Vegas back in the day, you couldn't come on the north, the south side of the 15 and the 95, where the Spaghetti Bowl is. If you notice where it says "Welcome to Historic West Side," that sign right there at the freeway entrance, everything on the north of that's traditionally a black neighborhood. You didn't come on the other side. It's like in New York, it's like you're crossing the tracks, right? You go to the different boroughs and all that sort of thing, right? You wouldn't pass to certain neighborhoods. Well, the sheriffs, if you passed over it, listen, back then they would stop you. So the only reason you would have to be on in a good neighborhood, so to speak, is if you worked for somebody, and it would be a casino. So they created the sheriff's card, and the reason they called it the sheriff's card was because it was just a card you would show the sheriff to prove you worked at a casino on this side of the freeway.
And they still use sheriff's card now, but
right.
How do they use them now? Obviously,
now
it's not that.
Now they use them just because you're working in the hotel industry.
Okay.
Now they just say, okay, we're not going to use them just for black people. We're just going to, if you're going to get a job working in the hospitality business in a casino, you have to get the sheriff's card. It's because if you stop the sheriff card altogether, then you have to admit that it was a racist thing. So you expand it and say everybody's got to get one.
That's interesting.
So I lived on that side of town. I've seen, you see the cartoons where they do the shooting and they show a silhouette of a person getting shot at, where my grandmother was running and we're getting shot at, because people, it was the wild, wild west. Okay. And I saw all that. And
in that area or all over Vegas?
No. That was because Vegas wasn't that big.
Okay.
Summerlin didn't exist. Green Valley didn't exist. You know, Nellis Air Force Base was the only thing out there, so everything was really centralized.
Okay.
So you just had the Strip, you had downtown, you had the West Side, which is technically north, right? Washington, Lake Mead, that kind of area, and you had like the Las Vegas Country Club area. You had certain areas of town that the influential people lived, wealthy people lived, and then you had the town of black people. It was just black and white. There was not really a lot of Latins. There was just black and white for the most part, and there was some Chinese. Which, ironically, I'm the representative for the Chinese American Citizens Alliance. I'm the local president and national rep. So,
Do you have any of that in your blood?
no Chinese in my blood. I'm Native American. I'm Cherokee.
Okay.
But both of my daughters are half Chinese.
Wow.
So, and I actually was a part of the organization before I had my daughters. So that's kind of ironic. But being from that outlook, not coming up wealthy, not being wealthy when I grew up, seeing the problems that a lot of people had, being harassed by cops. Okay, and don't get me wrong. I support the law enforcement. I've been pulled over a number of times, but every time I got pulled over, I knew exactly what wrong I had done. So I'm not gonna blame.
No. I mean, look, it's a different time in general.
Yeah.
I mean,
and so I knew as I got older and got into politics, law and politics. There's some things that, and I'm a Republican. I'm the chairman. I'm the national chair of the Republican Chamber of Commerce. So I have all these titles that don't fit my demographic, right? It's like, you're a black Republican. What? You're chair of the Chinese organization. How does that work out? You know, everything about me is like, I rode horseback and played golf, right, from my high school. I was supposed to play basketball. I was supposed to be a football player. I don't do anything that you would expect me to do, which is why I'm good at making shit happen. Because I can relate to every demographic, every demographic I can relate to. You've been arrested, I've been arrested. You know what I mean? You've been pulled over, I've been pulled over. You had your lights turned out, I had my lights turned out. You tried to close a deal, sign a contract, get a gig, I've tried all of that. I've owned model agencies, talent agencies, car dealerships, maid service, you name it, I have done it. And the best person you want working for you is someone that can understand where you're coming from and be very diverse. Exactly. So growing up on the West Side was a godsend, in my opinion, because I could see what I didn't like. I can see what I didn't want for myself or my future family and strive for something better. And when I see young kids today, or now I'm 46, even 30-year-olds are considered young kids. And I go, you don't want to do that. I've been there, done that. Trust me. The prosecutor ain't going to like that. Just stay away. So I try my best to do that. But I'm going to tell you what, and everybody should know this. As much as we like to see people succeed, they get more ratings seeing people fail. So you have to remember that. When someone attacks you, it's because you're probably doing something worthwhile. If you're on a road that has no roadblocks, you're on the wrong road because the devil's on your shoulder. But if you're on a road that has some roadblocks, then you know you're on the right road.
it's funny you say that on your shoulders, since Laura is our celebrity psychic and co-host. Do you see anything on his shoulders at all? While we're here, because
we all have an angel and a devil, right?
Right.
So I feel like you should start cleansing the room maybe before people come. You should do like a seance or something.
I do my own little.
Maybe we should dim the lighting a little bit, Jason.
I've got sage in the back.
Yeah, sage. So here's a question for you. So you made it interesting. Well, I want to share one thing with you, and I think that Paul as well. Paul, you when you were a kid, you grew up in Brooklyn, right?
Yeah.
In your school, was it mixed? The people that were there was black, white, Asian.
Yeah, it was pretty mixed.
It was mixed?
I mean, I was born in '79, so.
Okay. So I was born in '76, but in New York City, where I was, same thing, '76.
Same year, '76, July '76.
I'm April. So what's interesting about where I grew up, which I was fortunate, it was a top school district, but it was mixed of people that were there, of race, religion. So I remember I had, a Japanese friend, I had an Indian friend, I went to different birthday parties in different races, religions, and I do feel more diverse, of a person because I grew up with black, white, Indian, Asian, all different races, religions, and I feel I'm a better person I was a cop for 17 years, so I dealt with all kinds of different people and different religions, and I'm blessed for that. And I happened to work in Brooklyn in a really bad area. He mentioned Bedford-Stuyvesant. I actually was in Brownsville, East New York, where Mike Tyson grew up, and that's why he started fighting, is because it was such a bad area.
And I know Mike.
Mike, yeah. So it's funny. I met Mike a few months ago at Planet 13. He was signing some books, And I said, hey, I worked in Brownsville, as a cop. And, it was funny because that's where he grew up.
Right.
So he walked I walked the foot post as a police officer. He walked on foot, but, as a kid. But that's why he started to learn how to fight because he didn't want to get picked on.
Mm-hmm.
But I think it's great to be diversified. And I think that it helps people. But it's sad for some people that, if they're white and they go to a school that's all white and they never have a black friend or an Asian friend, right? They just grow up differently, and it's not the same.
I didn't have so many. It was a little diverse in Vegas, but it really wasn't that diverse. Probably why I married every diversity. That's probably why I did that.
Because you never had that. You never had that experience of different people.
I just married them all.
That's good. We actually had a few dating coaches here in the past few weeks, so it's been interesting. Question for you. You mentioned about bodies, and you're probably not familiar because on this podcast, we actually offered reward money for if someone found more bodies in barrels at Lake Mead. You mentioned Lake Mead.
Did it have to be in a barrel?
It had to be in a barrel that was
Okay.
specific.
All right.
It helped the odds situation, not losing.
Yeah, because I can go
$5,000.
out and right now. I mean, I'm not saying I know nothing about it. I'm just saying I'm gonna go out and find it.
So you've been here a long time. So you mentioned about like in Summerlin when they were building Summerlin. Did they find bodies in the desert?
Yeah, you would find remains. You would find
They
remains.
just didn't make a big deal. They just called a coroner and that was
make
it.
a big deal. Listen, we look. Why would you make a big deal out of it? I mean, what's going to come of it? They just investigate it. They wouldn't make a big deal out of it.
Mm-hmm.
It's Vegas, right? Would you make a big deal out of going to West Hollywood and seeing a guy in high heels? No, because it's West Hollywood, right?
Hopefully there's not that many bodies. There are men in high heels in West Hollywood.
I'm just saying. There's a lot of skeletons, not even in closets, but just out in the desert.
Fair enough.
Nevada. Look, we have a lot of land, and we're as big as we've grown. We're still. Running for lieutenant governor. I had to travel the state. Right, I traveled the state for more than a year running for lieutenant governor. When you drive from Vegas, 45 minutes north of Vegas, when you hit Indian Springs, once you hit Indian Springs, you're going to go like 4 hours without seeing anything. People don't realize our state is still mainly mining, not gaming. Mining is number one. We mine a lot in this state because we've got nothing but land, and but I think it's almost 80% of our state is owned by BLM. Not Black Lives Matter, but Bureau of Land Management. So yes, there was that problem. Look, Decatur, no one would go past Decatur, okay? If you were heading west, if you were passing Decatur, you're going out of town. And if you were passing Decatur in the city, you know where Tula Springs, the park is, and Floyd Land Park, it depends on what you know it by. You might know it as Floyd Land Park. He was a sheriff. Floyd Land was a sheriff here in town. Floyd Land Park, they changed the name to Tula Springs because apparently he got caught like shoving money in his jacket. So Tula Springs. People go to Tula Springs now, which, by the way, is in the middle of a neighborhood, okay? And now they go for an hour or two. When I was growing up, my grandpa would go to Tula Springs overnight. It'd be a weekend fishing trip. That's how far the city has grown. Now you drive out. I went to an event at Tula Springs. I was driving. We used to know, once you don't see anything, Tula Springs is coming up. Now, if you don't see anything, you've passed Tula Springs probably 20 minutes ago. So, yes.
Interesting. So here's a good question for you. So some people said that, back in the day with mobsters, being in Vegas, why would you take a body in a barrel to Lake Mead when you would just go out to the desert and just make a hole? Actually, I was at Oscar Goodman's house, Mayor Oscar Goodman, and that's what he said. Why would you go to Lake Mead when you just can, go out to the desert? He actually said when he would go to a lot of these, when he got a shovel, he was afraid of putting the shovel in the dirt, thinking that somebody would show up. And this is the mayor, of Las Vegas. And now,
right,
his wife basically is taking over, and they think she's termed out, right?
Yeah, she's termed out. So we've got a lot of people running now.
What are your thoughts about that? For the fact that he thought, like, why go to Lake Mead? Do you think there's a lot of bodies in Lake Mead?
Well, here's the deal: there's amateurs and there's professionals.
Got it. So the professional, where does the professional go?
I mean, you go to the desert. I mean,
and then if you're an amateur,
oh yeah, over there. Now it's also not only that; it's not just professional and amateur. I also think it's demographic wise. So like in the East Coast, there's no desert. You used to, water is the method, right?
Okay.
So if you were, let's say if you were someone used to dumping somebody in bodies of water, and it became the way most people get caught It's because of their pattern, right? Their MO. You're a cop, right? The whole thing is your MO. So if your MO is a certain thing, that's an MO, right? If you're from the East Coast and all you're used to is dumping things in water, and you come to Vegas, what's the only body of water, albeit man-made, right? So that's what you do. Because you had some of the gangsters that were out of California, and they had acclimated to the West more so than the new guys that had come from the East, right? So if you were a made man, or maybe you were I don't want to say a fixer, but an enforcer, right, or a capo or something like that, and that's how you did things. The first thing you think is cement shoes, a barrel, right? A barrel, where you gonna find cement, right? Like. So
I'm not sure if you know. So on this show, what we did was, it was kind of funny back in the day when. And Laura wasn't here at the time. But the body situation, the barrel, what I did was, we had a diver. He was actually from New York, Brooklyn. And he came on the show, and we talked about the body. And my idea was to do like a crime prevention type of strategy, to offer reward money where people would come forward to share information, and also offer reward money if someone found another body in a barrel. But it really was to be more of a prevention thing, and then also like see something, say something, like the whole, for terrorism wise.
Right.
So there was a little bit different strategy. So he comes on and he basically says, we shouldn't go out there because basically people are going to get hurt if you're diving. So I said, okay, let's make it a certified diver.
Right.
So it basically goes out. We offer $5,000 reward. A lot of people were basically messaging us. People were going out. We got a phone call from parks, federal parks, and they said, look, you can't go out there unless you have a permit approved by the federal government to look for criminal activity and or archaeological purposes.
Right.
And the guy was cool on the phone with me. Actually, it was funny. He apologized. Maybe he thought he was like rough to me on the phone. I said, look, I didn't know, I said certified diver, follow the rules and regulations,
Right.
But I'm not sure if you know, there's been 6 bodies that have been located since the water's been going down. Only 1 body in a barrel.
Right.
And there was one guy that was on the show. He was Spanish. He only spoke Spanish, Spanish speaking on the show. And he found like 3 of them because he's like out and adventurous with his wife and kids. And there was a torso that like kind of just came up to shore with his kid. And like, what is that,
Wow, that's gross.
So kind of crazy stuff. But so right now it's
You ask, you get.
it's true. But right now it's been colder weather. Now and the truth is the water is still going down. It's supposedly it's the lowest since 1940, and now it's very cold. It's still gone down. So I believe when it's warmer weather comes out, there's still bodies probably that are out there that will surface because it's been over 80 years that basically that has never been this low, which sounds kind of crazy. So there's So what's your take? I mean, how many more? I'm not sure if you know this too, by the way, but they told me that there's over like 100 barrels in Lake Mead that when they built Hoover Dam, they left barrels there. They didn't want to move them. And the question is what's inside. They won't move them because they don't know, but there is some type of map that showcases where the barrels are GPS-wise because they don't want to move them.
Right.
What's your take on that?
I don't know. I don't want to be right because if I'm right, then I'll get a knock on the door. So
I'm just curious. You've been here for a while. You know people.
So, here's the thing. I don't know about the barrel. I don't know about the barrel thing. But there's definitely, without the barrel, actually the barrel helps to preserve the body, and preserve everything with it instead of it breaking apart and then floating off and going in all separate ways. If it's contained in a barrel, then even if it breaks apart, it's still going to be somewhat contained. So, I don't know if there's going to be a lot more in the barrels because you got to figure, it goes back to me saying the MO. Whoever's doing the barrel thing, he's only gonna do it so it's that guy.
Got it.
You know what I mean? It's like Ice Pick Kelly or something. Like you have an MO. So if you're known for shooting people in the middle of the forehead, then they're all yours. If you're known for dumping somebody in the barrel, they're all yours. So I don't think we're gonna find that many more in a barrel, but there's more out there. Obviously, there's definitely more out there.
So you don't think there's more in a barrel?
I said there's not many more in a barrel.
So you think there could be a few more?
I think there could be a few more in barrels because it's not a one-time look.
If there's one, there's got to be more than one.
If there's one for that, of course there is. Of course there is.
Got it.
We all saw Casino.
Paul's from Bed-Stuy. What do you think, Paul?
Yeah, definitely.
What do you think? We're taking a
There's
guess.
more
How
in the
many?
barrels. There's more outside the barrels. I don't want to think about it. I shower in that water. That's the water we get through our water system.
All right, it's interesting. Laura, any psychic feedback?
I mean, I definitely feel like there's quite a few bodies
Got
still
it.
out there.
It's just the whole conspiracy.
Seven barrels.
We started a while
It's-
ago, so it's still going the whole.
It's
you know.
not a conspiracy theory. I mean,
Yeah.
look at what happened over the last 3 years. Everything that starts, oh, it's a conspiracy theory. And then next thing you
Mm-hmm. It's
know,
all coming. And it's true.
yeah, it's not coming true. It was true in the
happening.
beginning. They just,
Yeah.
and so I don't go too far on that
Mm-hmm.
calling it a conspiracy theory. You know,
Got
this
it.
stuff happens.
Tell us about you running for lieutenant governor. What made you decide to do that?
The state. First off, like I said, born and raised here. I've lived on not just in North Las Vegas or the traditional black West Side. I've lived all over. I've lived, in Henderson. I've lived everywhere in this community. And over the last 15 years, I've seen our state and our city go to the shits. Lack of better word. And I don't like it. And the only thing that's going to stop it or even pump the brakes on it is for people who will stand up and not be the status quo. I've learned over the years, I've run for mayor. I've run for city council. I've run for mayor. I've run for assembly. I won my assembly primary race a couple years ago. And I learned that sometimes you can actually get more done not being an elected official if you don't have balls. Because as an elected official, people get into that office and they care more about keeping that office than making a change. And so it's like they get in there going, I hate what you do. You did this wrong. You did that wrong. Then they get elected after they campaign. And then next thing you know, they're making deals just to stay around. And, I'm not in this to just stay around. I'm in this to make some significant changes like Donald Trump. Look, I'm a huge Donald Trump fan. Okay, I'm a huge Donald Trump supporter. The man was railroaded. The guy wasn't racist until he decided to run for office. He stood right next to Rosa Parks getting an award from the Rainbow Coalition at the exact same time Rosa Parks did. But you didn't see that come out in the media. Louis Farrakhan, I never really followed the guy. I never really supported what he had to say. But he said, let Donald Trump do what he needs to do, right? Because Obama didn't do anything for us. I mean, Obama gave us a bunch of cell phones. Okay, he didn't give us any jobs. We can't even call in sick to a job with the phone he gave us because he gave us a bunch of free phones. Okay, what good is a free phone? You got no job. So I believe that our state could be better. What people don't realize is 30 years ago, Clark County was one of the top school districts in the nation. It was always 1 and 2. We were always number 1. We were always number 2. Now we're last. And the only correlation I have to that, and I hate to get too political, but I'm going to get political because it's what I do. The only thing that I can even point that to is that we haven't had a Democrat, we haven't had a Republican on the school board in more than 25 years until we got Katie Williams. One person can't do all the changes. They can't do everything. They got to kind of do some of the negotiation to get us a little further along, which is what I wish he would do more of than the get along to go along or go along to get along thing. But that's why I ran for lieutenant governor. I ran for lieutenant governor because, one, don't need the money. Okay? 2, I don't care what you think. If I get people calling me up saying, Mac, can you go to this meeting because they want to do this, they want to do that, and we don't support it. I had that happen to me in 2021, where one day I got a call, said, Mac, can you go to the county commission meeting because they want to pass this law or proclamation making misinformation about COVID illegal, and will you speak out against it? It was the day before the county commission meeting. And I looked it up, I read it, I wanted to make sure that I was on the same page, and I agreed that it was wrong. And I went down there to that meeting that next morning, and I got thrown through a metal detector, and I'm suing the county for it to this day. And
that's right. I saw the video.
So
Wow, that's crazy.
So I don't do things. I'm not here, and I didn't get paid a dime. No one pays me to go to the city council meetings or the county commission meetings. No one pays me to go to school board meetings. I've got a daughter in the school district right now. She made it to spelling bee. Spelling bee 8. I think she was like 8 out of 350,000 kids. You know how long it took me to meet Nate Tannenbaum? I had to wait till my daughter to win the spelling bee. I never could win the spelling bee, so I was very proud of her.
Awesome.
But these are the reasons, because now I'm a father, I'm a husband, I'm a son, I'm a brother, right? I'm an uncle. And when you're younger, I've always been this way, but it gets even deeper the older you get because you build these ties to your community. And then you look at the politicians and you go, hey, what the fuck is wrong with you? Why you can't see that we should not be touting Las Vegas as a place to come to get an abortion? Okay, I don't care if you get an abortion, but don't make it your form of birth control on the taxpayer's dime. These are the reasons why I ran for lieutenant governor. And I also ran because whether I got elected or not, it gives you a platform. You have to run. I encourage everybody out there to at some point in time run for office. I don't care how logical or wacky your platform is, but it gives you one. And then that's the only time you're going to get any news on what you're trying to say, right?
I have run for office, and I agree. It's such a learning experience. You grow a lot, and also just get insight into the process in a totally different way when you're involved.
Can't have thin skin.
No.
Can't have thin skin. You're gonna find out things about yourself that even you didn't know. Okay, I didn't know I was a white supremacist. I was like accused of being a white supremacist a couple years ago by the RJ. They put pictures of me and said white supremacist speaking at the State House and all this kind of stuff. So, but my thing is this: I'm a fighter. And when someone calls me up and they say, I'm trying to get this done or I need your help with that, I do my best to be there. And 9 times out of 10, I make it there. I have the luxury of being able to work for myself and being able, right now, I might leave this studio and see a voicemail message saying, can you be at a protest in 4 hours? We're going to be in a candlelight vigil to stop the doctors from getting fired because they won't take the COVID vaccine. Then I'm there. Because as long, as simple as that. That's why I ran for lieutenant governor.
Who was running against you at the time?
Well, we had so the current lieutenant governor is Stavros Anthony, which I support.
That's what it is. You just ran against him.
Yeah, just ran
anyone.
So it was in the Republican primary. That is, we had I think 2 transgenders running in the Democrat. I take that. Don't let anybody. It's not the Democratic Party. It's the Democrat Party. Okay, they're Democrats. They're not necessarily Democratic, because if they were Democratic, we'd have more freedoms. Okay, so, but on the Democrat side, there was like 2 transgenders, and the former mayor of Henderson, and she was like the only one I kind of really knew. In the Republican side, we had myself.
Which one was the Henderson one?
That was Deborah March. Deborah March was the mayor of
too?
Henderson, and she ran for lieutenant governor. But on the Democrat side, so she did she make it past her primary? I don't know. I can't even recall.
I don't really follow it as much, but I know Deborah. I mean, it's just more
and I like her. She's a nice lady.
Yeah.
There was myself on the Republican side. There was me. There was Stavros Anthony. There was a guy by the name of John Miller, and then there was Tony Grady, who's a former Air Force pilot or trained. No, he wasn't. He was a pilot, but I think he trained pilots. He doesn't necessarily go fighting or anything like that. There was another guy, I can't remember his name, and there was the entertainer guy, Peter Pavoni. And I personally think that the only 2 that have been fighting for this community in this state was myself and Stavros Anthony. And I said, I'm not going to take a loss to anybody but Stavros. I actually said that. And traveling this state and speaking to everybody in all the 17 counties that we have, I was actually happy that Stavros beat me in the primary, because I would have been very, very, very disappointed if someone who the others have never fought for this community. They're not from this community. And by the way, I think I'm the only one that did run for lieutenant governor that was born in this state. But at the very least, Stavros has been a representative of our community as a city councilman, as a with the police department and so forth as well. And I felt that, okay, if somebody's got to take this race in the primary, I'm backing Stavros Anthony, and I did.
What was the voting against each other? What was the percentage?
So I can't even remember the percentage. I do recall that John Miller confused people because it's 2 Millers.
Okay.
Tony Grady confused people because there's 2 black people.
Okay.
So I'd have people actually coming out saying, I voted for you when they voted for him. Oh. Or I saw you speak in, up in Lincoln County or somewhere when I was nowhere near at the time, and it was Tony. Or someone would say, oh, I heard about you. You started that bank, right? No, that was John Miller, not Mac Miller.
Who's the better looking one?
Me, of course. What, are you kidding me? Are you kidding me? Listen, if it was on looks.
Was he as good looking as me?
If it was on looks, I'd be governor.
Okay.
So I'm still fairly new to Vegas and Nevada, obviously. And so I'd love to hear why you think as a whole that Nevada has gone so downhill? So you mentioned the schools.
California. All right, listen. Real simple. It's real simple. Okay, this state is a red state. We're traditionally a red state. We're a hardworking state. And I'll tell you, I'll throw this out right now. I'm gonna plug myself. So millersconsult.com. You know, you can learn more about me. But if you want to see that video of me being thrown through the metal detectors, fighting for everybody's rights, you go to macmillerfornevada.com. You can see me get thrown through the metal detector.
Chase, can you look that one up? Say it again.
So Mac Miller, M-A-C-K Miller, the number 4, NV.com.
4NV.com, and that's the videos. I think I saw a little bit the other day.
Oh, yeah. So,
I'm sorry, answer a question.
So here's my take on it. It's real. We're a transient state. We're a transient city, moreoverly, right? And Vegas was not created. Vegas was not created for. I'll just say it. It wasn't created for poor people. It's a playground for the wealthy.
And specifically Californians.
Specifically Californians to come over here and party their butts off. And, we're on the internet, so I can say asses. Party their asses off and then go back, right? And so then because of the high cost of living in California, people realize, wow, I can get a 3-bedroom apartment in Las Vegas at the time for like $800, right? And I'm spending $3,000 in California, but their habits and their ideals didn't change. So for all the people that leave California going, I can't afford it, healthcare, this, that, I can't afford it anymore. They come here, and what they don't realize is the reason they can't afford it is because they voted for it. They voted for it all. Then they come here and they vote for it again, thinking, well, that's how I got to vote. And if you're going to vote the same way, then you're going to get the same thing. And so down we go. Down we go. Taxes go up. The current legislation, the Democrat legislation in Nevada now want to increase our property taxes 8%. They want an income tax, a state income tax. We've never had a state income tax.
That's honestly why a lot of people move here.
People move here
and start their businesses here.
Exactly. We don't have a corporate tax in Nevada. Now, what makes you think that all these other states that are failing miserably, which have high corporate taxes, high state income taxes, they're failing miserably economically? What makes them think that we're going to be any different if all of a sudden we come up with an income tax and a corporate tax? I don't understand it. You can go to Detroit and buy a house for $1,500 as long as you agree with the city or the county to renovate it within 6 months.
Well, the problem too, and from taxation perspective as a whole, is that once a tax is implemented, it almost always gets higher. So, for example, income tax as a whole, it was always said to be a temporary thing, and then look at how it is now.
Once it's implemented, it not only goes up, but it not only does it not get redacted or removed, but it goes up. Listen, taxes overall were meant to support the war effort. It was temporary. Our boy at the time, just boys, right? At the time, our boys were over there fighting, with the Civil War, this, that, or against the British and all this. That we're going to impose these taxes for the war effort. We'll get rid of them as soon as we win. That never happened, and it never does. And people think that. And here's the biggest problem: taxes never hurt the rich. Okay? Because the rich can afford to move. A rich person from California who has a company in California, he can move to Nevada, or she can move to Nevada, get rid of their income tax, keep their company there. Now, the only people paying the high tax in California are the people that can't afford to leave there and have to work for the company. I can live in any state I want to and make just as much money and take advantage of the tax benefits in the state that doesn't have taxes. Poor people can't do that. When the Democrats say that they're only going to raise taxes on people that are the top 1% income earners in this country, the average person, I'll give you, what do you think you have to make annually to be considered in the top 1% income earners in this country? Just out of,
I don't know, more than $500,000.
More than $500,000
a year.
So 500,000 or more, and you're considered in the top 1%. No, it's like $250,000.
Oh, is it really? Okay.
So like everybody's boss technically is like in the top 1%, but yet the majority of the people will go to the polls and go, well, this don't affect me. I'm not in the 1%. So yeah, raise taxes on them. And then what they don't realize is, like Reagan said, trickle down economics, right? So what happens is they go and raise taxes on all their bosses. And that's why we don't have penny candy anymore. And the cheapest gum is $3. And we don't have sodas for $0.25. We don't have coffee for 50 cents. We have coffee for $3. That's why. Because when you thought you were sticking it to the man shoveled it downhill. And he's still going, because my kid's still going to go to a private school. My wife's still going to drive a nice car. If the Uncle Sam said to me, you got to pay an extra $10,000 or $20,000 in taxes, do you think I'm going to tell my wife she can't get her nails done? No. I'm going to say, well, I guess I got to fire the poor file clerk in my office. It never affects the top guy. The price goes up with services.
And the wealthy people know how to handle their money, so they're going to get the less tax.
Right.
And
You
set
write
up
it
trusts
off.
and whatever.
You set up trust, you write it off, you do that sort of thing. So all I'm saying is this, and you know, a lot of people don't think that this is work, but I don't know anybody that has a business that doesn't want a lot of people working for them. But the only way they're going to hire a lot of people is if they're not responsible for paying a bunch of taxes on those people they hire. If you start your business, you would love to have 20 producers in here raking in the advertising, raking in the guests. But when the Uncle Sam comes in and says, oh, wait a minute, you got to pay for all that, then you won't hire them. You say, we can settle for 2 producers, and we don't have to worry about it. And we 1099 them. We don't even make them employees. So the minute these politicians understand how business works, like Donald Trump understood how business works, we can turn things around and make it better for everybody. The little guy can actually come up.
Let's showcase your video, and then I want you to kind of explain what happened.
Oh.
And this is over, was it Grand Central Parkway over there? What is it called again?
Yes, and at the County Commission Chambers.
All right,
Where can I find it on here?
Right there where you see Laura Ingraham, because Laura Ingraham, I was on...
this one here?
Yep, I was on with Laura Ingraham.
Let's showcase that video.
Let's see if we have sound.
Nevada yesterday, the Clark County Commission voted to declare a public health emergency over COVID vaccine disinformation. Now, when some citizens showed up to protest the vote as an obvious attack on free speech, security showed up and treated them like this.
First Amendment rights! First Amendment rights! First Amendment rights! Who are you?
I'm working here.
What are you doing?
I'm asking you to leave.
You're violating our First Amendment rights.
The man you just saw shoved to the ground is my next guest, Mac Miller, who's also running for Lieutenant Governor of Nevada. Mac, now explain what was happening briefly in that footage. Did you do anything to provoke that response, Mac?
I asked for a badge number and a name, Laura. Thank you for having me, by the way. The county commission meetings are supposed to be run by the commissioners for the people of Clark County here in Nevada. And those people have a right to ask questions and be interested in what's on the agenda at these meetings. And what was on the agenda at this meeting was a proclamation to basically do away with Nevada's Clark County's First Amendment rights. And I was there to witness and oppose this proclamation. And that didn't get to happen because I was attacked after trying to defend the people in this county. They will never stop me, Mac Miller, from being able to defend them, and they'll never prevent me from coming out to defend the people of this great state of Nevada.
Now, this is an image of what happened to your head when they slammed you into that metal detector. It looks like you got a bump on the head there. Again, if you perhaps had a different political affiliation and you were showing up to speak about some other protected cause, you would have been a cause celeb. Your bump would have turned into a human rights travesty.
They'd be attacking the other side, and I'd be just the biggest victim ever. But I'm not, because they don't expect that African Americans, or in my case, American Africans of Cherokee descent, as a matter of fact, would be a Republican. I'm the chairman, national chairman of the Republican Chamber of Commerce. I sit on boards such as the Chinese American Citizens Alliance. It is lucky that Right News America was actually there on scene when this all happened. I blacked out. I was attacked by these security guards. And Laura, I want to point out so that our men in blue and our women in blue and first responders in this nation realize that there is misinformation. There's some misinformation out there, but no amount of misinformation should take away your First Amendment rights. And the police, let's get it very clear, the police didn't do this. This was not a peace officer or a police thing. This were hired security officers of the Clark County Commission that tackled me,
so Mac,
me to the ground.
Yeah, Mac, is the goal here, or their intent, is to intimidate others from coming out and saying, you can't criminalize speech here. You're not going to ban speech because you want more people to get vaccinated. If that's a laudable cause, make a better argument, but don't ban speech. Are they trying to intimidate people like you or anyone from showing up at these meetings, period?
Definitely a show of force. I mean, there were less people guarding our border prior to 2 days ago than there were guarding this county commission meeting to prevent citizens from coming in, listening, and speaking their minds like they have a right to do.
Mac, this is, again, it's looking more like a Hong Kong protest reaction than the United States of America. Good to see you tonight. And while Americans like my last guest are being thrown out of public.
All right. So what? Long story short, something must have happened. You asked for a name and badge number, and then they kind of.
Well, yes, they shut down the meeting. Is what they did. They originally the chairperson Marilyn Kirkpatrick, who was the county commission chair at the time, stopped the meeting because a woman didn't have her mask on correctly. Wasn't covering her nose. Despite the fact that the mask was made a mess in the first place. And so they shut the meeting down and told everybody to leave, and that's great. And so we were all leaving, and I'm walking up out of the chambers while I'm giving a little bit of a report. And the reason I was giving the report, I was live on, there's actually other footage of me personally videotaping live because I said, the people who called me the day before that wanted me to be here, maybe they don't know I came. So I don't really go live on Facebook or anything. So that particular day I decided, let me go live. And I said, I'm Mac Miller. I'm here at the county commission meeting. I don't know who had requested me to be here, but I want you to know that I came to oppose this. And as I'm saying that, I'm walking out of the building, and there's a lot of shoving going on. And the security guards were shoving these women at the bottom of the stairs. And I turned around and I said, hey, you can't put your hands on people. You can't shove people. So I turned back around. I said, yeah, they're shoving people down there. And then I got shoved. So then I turned around and I said, hey, don't push me. That's where the tagline, don't push me, came from. Don't push me. You can't shove people. By the way, get his name and badge number. And the moment I said that, the two security officers turned around, bum rushed me through my back, through the double doors, and then as you can see, they threw me through the metal detectors. And now we're in federal court.
So you have a lawsuit going on suing?
Yes.
Is it Clark County?
Suing Clark County, suing also the security guard company. Latest update as of, I think, December of last year, after basically a year of the county saying, oh, there's nothing wrong, the county filed a counterclaim, a lawsuit against the security guard company.
Well, just to protect their interests.
Exactly. But that's fine. We know who was wrong. And that video was seen by over 700 million people. Mm-hmm. And there were several people in the chambers, and I think 9 or 10 of them that gave affidavits. But there are at least 10 people that when it started, whipped out their phones and were live on whatever social media outlet they used. And I didn't even know. I thought I was about to be arrested. And the reason I did is because I knew they were going to try and cover up something. But they had nothing because they were in the wrong. I didn't get cited. I didn't get cited for trespassing because I was there lawfully.
Okay.
I didn't get cited for assault or battery because I had my phone in one hand and a legal pad in the other. And the whole time this went down, my hands were up in the air when I was thrown through the metal detector. And the metal detector hit me in the head, which caused me to collapse.
Is that the injury from that? Or
yes. So it hit me in the metal detector, hit me in the head, which caused me to then collapse and fall and hit the back of my head further on the marble or concrete or whatever it is there. Mm-hmm. And so it's, and that's why I have a cane to this day. I'm weaning
Was the cane from the actual incident?
The cane is from that incident.
Wow.
So I am, I'm trying to get off this cane the best I can, but every time I do that, I end up, almost face planting because I'll go a while and then something will happen and then I'll lose my footing.
How much more time do you think the lawsuit? You think 6 months, a year, 2 years?
You can't tell.
I mean, that's probably lawsuits that take forever, right?
Yeah, you can't tell. And I'm not worried about it. And the thing about me is that I don't need to rush it. I've got a great law firm that's handling it, and they let them do what they do. The county ought to know what to do, right? No one from the county ever called to check on me and never say anything. No one said a thing about.
And people are afraid of liability probably with that
yeah,
as well.
Of course. Well, now the Supreme Court has made it so that you can sue employees. As of this year, Nevada Supreme Court says before, if the employee of a government body in Nevada did something wrong that was negligent or whatever in their authorities or whatever, you'd have to sue the county. Qualified immunity, yeah. You'd have to sue the county, you'd have to sue the state, you'd have to sue whatever. Now you can sue the actual employee.
Real quickly, we got about 5 minutes left. I just want to answer, everything these days on the internet, we have several different, people that watch the show, what we call super fans. A super fan, Steve, basically, was online, and he likes to do some research on different people. And I know that sometimes there's things on the internet about different people, and there's people that like to talk smack about you or me or Laura or even Paul here as well. Yeah. So I guess the thing is this. I wanted to bring up two topics that he brought up. If you want to basically talk about them and clarify, the two issues that basically I think that even when you were running for politics, one was impersonating a police officer and then the military situation.
Right.
Anything that you want to share about those two topics? I know nothing about them, but...
too easy. So the impersonating police officer bit came out of a Halloween incident where I was a police officer for Halloween.
Okay.
So, I had the badge and the whole bit in my car and whatnot, and I actually got pulled over after the fact. And likewise, if you don't got anything else to arrest the person on, what do? You arrest them on what you can find. So having a badge is, you've got a badge. Why do you have a badge? It was part of my Halloween costume. You don't arrest anybody for impersonating a Playboy bunny. So why arrest me for that? So that's where that came about. The second
Laura was arrested for a Playboy
bunny. Right. So that was where that came about. The military thing was actually quite interesting.
What happened with that case then? Was it thrown out or what?
You know what's crazy?
How young were you?
Now I can't even remember whether it was thrown. I think it was. I think it was. But
how many years ago were you?
Oh man, this was. I'm now 46, so this had to be in the maybe 2000.
So 20 years ago?
Yeah, it was a while ago.
Okay.
So I can't even remember on that one. I know my military issue was in 2009.
Okay.
7, 8, 9. Yeah, it was in 2009. But what I discovered was, one, I was new to a unit. I got blown up a couple times. Later, it came out that I'd been blown up by friendly fire. And because I was new to the unit, it was easy to move me around and ask me to take a Chapter 10. So I had all the paperwork for that. I showed all that paperwork. And I said, there's no way I'm taking a Chapter 10. So they decided to court-martial me. So I said, well, you can court-martial me all you want.
What is a Chapter 10 for those?
Basically, what I found out of Chapter 10 was, because I didn't know UCMJ law at the time. Now I know it well. It's where you sign paperwork and say the military is not for you. You just want to quit. So me not being I fight. I said, no, I'm not quit. You want me to just step away? I get blown up. You send me to the 61st Medical in LA. And then you say, military's not for you. You're a city boy. You're not good for infantry. You can go ahead and get out. So in order to get out, go ahead and sign this Chapter 10. So I do read. So when I read it, I said, wait, this is saying that I'm quitting and the military is not for me. So I said, no, I'm going back to work, because they couldn't force me to do it.
Okay.
So the thing was, when they couldn't force me to do it, they lost my records. Everything under the sun would happen. Like, they thought I was in Fort Sill for 3 months when I was actually in Germany, and just all kinds of things happened. So what then turned out was, I found out later, they said, all right, we're going to court-martial you for being AWOL. When was I AWOL? Well, you were AWOL during this period and this period. But that period was while I was at the 61st Medical. Now, one thing a lot of young soldiers don't do is they don't keep their records. But I kept my records. Okay? So I said, well, here's where I was. We proved all that in court. But 96% conviction rate when it comes to a UCMJ. Because unlike in civilian court, where all the jury members are like 12 people from however many hundreds of thousands in your county or millions in your county, your jury in a UCMJ action is going to be first sergeants, or I think it's I want to say first sergeant from your base. So it's like saying that all the 12 guys who work together every day are your jury. So if one recommends it, then they're
probably not unbiased.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And that's okay. I didn't mind that, because it didn't hurt me any other than giving me that record. So when I got out, I lived my life. I said, all right, whatever. But I'm glad. If I was somebody else, it would have ruined my life. And what I mean by ruin my life is I wouldn't have been able to get a job. I probably would have been on drugs and doing alcohol and killed myself or somebody else. I probably would have gone completely crazy. But I was always well off. I didn't join the Army till I was 29 years old. Okay, so I had a few bucks in my pocket. But when I decided to run for office and it all came out, I said, that's not how it went down. I showed them the paperwork. It was determined that they said, we couldn't find out where you got injured. You couldn't find out that I got injured because why? There's two sets of records in the military. One is injury by the insurgents, the opposition. And there's injury by friendly fire. Well, it turns out that the Explosive Ordnance Division had set off the bomb that threw me through the wall. And that's a big no-no. And since I was new to the unit, he'll go ahead and get out. Later on, I got taken care of.
Interesting. So quickly for you, as we wrap up, what is the future for you? What's your plans for the future? I'm sorry that your incident happened. I know there's getting politics and stuff like that. It's not a good situation. Yeah. I hope you recover, quickly from the injury. I'm sure you have some good attorneys for it. But what's the future? Are you going to run again for something? Or?
I will be, actually. I don't because I don't stop. And like I said, remember what I said earlier was win or no win, you have a platform when you're running. And so if you want to get points across, you want to get people to look at what you're saying, to think about what you're talking about. Look at Joey Gilbert, for example. Mm-hmm. You know what? He did a great job running in the primary for a governor. But a lot of the things that he was saying with frontline doctors and things like that, nobody was listening to or wouldn't say. But he ran for governor. The minute he started talking about that, all of a sudden he started looking into it and ivermectin or whatever. Mm-hmm. I can't even pronounce the words. But people started looking into it more. And then as it comes out, wait a minute, these things are valid. If you don't have a platform, you're done.
Got it.
So I encourage anyone that wants a platform that they don't necessarily always have to pay for to run for public office.
Do you think Shelley Berkeley will make the next mayor? Who's running against Shelley?
Well, right now, I think, if I'm correct, Victoria Seaman, who's a city councilwoman, is running. She's Republican. They're also
Shelley Democrat? Democrat,
yes.
Right? Okay.
Yes.
What do you think?
Big Democrat.
Because she was a congresswoman.
You're right. Look, I'll be honest with you. I know we keep saying this and beating this like a dead horse, but we need some young blood. What is she? She's just old. Nice lady. All right, look, I don't really know her that well.
I'm assuming that she's influential, been around the block, she's going to wind up winning.
I don't know about around the block, but she's been around.
Yeah, I'm
so she just. I think she got like endorsed by Oscar or something like that. Who knows? Maybe it's gonna work. But maybe the time for those old school endorsements, maybe that old school endorsement's coming to an end. Because while Vegas is still kind of Vegas, look, we did get influenced by the Californians and the new people. Mm-hmm. And
you never know.
And the only thing I think she's got going good for her is their first name starts with B. Look, right now it's more about being a female.
This should be first?
First on the ballot. I mean, look, B, you know what I mean?
It helps.
Exactly. The people don't know how important it is. These people don't know who these names are.
That's why you could change last name to A.
Well, look at Canizari, or not Canizari, the girl in the county commission. She changed her name from something that made it start with a C, and then she won. So Shelley Berkeley, obviously, she's got a great chance. If she's got,
you mean that ran for judge?
No, ran for school board.
Okay.
But Shelley Berkeley, obviously, she's got a good shot because she's old school, right? And she's got Oscar Goodman backing her, so everybody's just gonna, follow suit or whatever. But you know what? A lot of those people are dead. Hey, yeah, I said it. Whatever. The point is, she's old, and a lot of those supporters are dead.
No, it's not like he's anything.
And now, Bruno Mars could run, and maybe he would win. But the thing is,
wasn't Mayweather or something that didn't he want to run?
I didn't hear that.
I thought somebody said that.
If he said, well, you know what? He could probably win. Who knows? But you got Victoria Seaman running. Mm-hmm. You got Cedric Creer. Now, here's the thing. Cedric Creer is right after Berkeley, right? It's a name game, too. Cedric Creer is a city councilman. I think he's Ward 5. I think his biggest problem is he never leaves Ward 5, in my opinion. I mean, he stays in the black neighborhoods, and he's black people famous. You know the difference between famous and black people famous, right? And Shelley Berkeley has been around a long time. Victoria Seaman, she's got a good following outside of just the black neighborhoods. Look, maybe Mac Miller might run. Who knows?
I like it. Well, Mac, I really appreciate you coming on the show and sharing, a lot of the stuff. I know you've been out there, and I'm glad to have you on the show. Like I said, I know you're on Real Vegas Magazine. You're out, you're networking. And so I really appreciate sharing. And also, like I said, a superfan Steve likes to do research every time we have.
Yeah, and I love that. I'm not going to shy away from any questions.
Maybe superfan Steve should be working for you in the future.
Hey, I don't look.
He's research and development.
I don't shy away from questions. That's one thing that I don't do. There's two things I don't do. One, I don't write speeches. I'm always off the cuff. I said I won't write a speech until I get elected and I have something to tell the people I accomplished while being elected, and I didn't want to leave anything out. And two, ask me the question, I'm going to answer the question, because I won't crawl under a rock. And everybody makes mistakes. Those two weren't my mistakes, but I have made mistakes, and I'm not going to crawl under a rock. You got to keep living your life, believe in Jesus Christ, the Lord and Savior, love your wife, your husband, don't beat your kids. That's like the military closing at the end of the night, and then and keep moving forward.
Absolutely. So Mac Miller with Miller & Associates, Chief Legal Strategist. I'm assuming we run something from the future. When you run, you can come back on the show, and then you can talk more about politics, especially when you run. So thanks so much for joining us. Thanks so much, Laura, for co-hosting, and Paul, as well as our new producer, basically out there, also helping us solve some problems.
Thank you.
So appreciate that, Paul. As usual, I'm Dave Kohlmeyer. Every single Thursday, we're going live, basically talking about different problems. Great people like basically Mac Miller here discussing, I guess the future. The future's going to be very interesting, especially after today. We'll see what happens with the mayor position. Maybe he may be running as well. You never know. So we'll have to support Mac as well. But you can go to the problemsolver.vegas. If you have a problem, you can call 702-999-1111, 702-999-1111 if you got a problem. You can also text us as well. Be careful. Be safe. We'll see you next Thursday. Have a good one.